Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to welcome you to another installment of the Zoom In on the Halal Metropolis project. Today, I'm interviewing the head of CARE Michigan, Dawud Walid. How are you doing, Dawud?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be on with you.
So the purpose of this series is actually for us to document and learn more and highlight the role the Muslim community is playing in basically on the front lines of the pandemic, how it's affecting the community, how the community is responding. So tell me. I mean, we spoke almost a year ago now, and at that point, you were talking to me about how the community's religious practices were really being affected by COVID, and the ways in which the mosques were taking precautions, and new things were being thought about in terms of funeral practices and things like this. Where do you see things today?
Well, I think that the Muslim community in Michigan, just like the broader society, there's a range. There are people who are hyper vigilant. There are people who've kind of settled into a routine. And then there are people who are anti-vaxxers who believe that the Illuminati is behind the vaccination and there's 5G and Bill Gates is working with the Antichrist, which literally I've had someone come to my office last month saying this, asking us to tell our constituents not to take a vaccine and it'll violate their civil rights if they try to be forced to take it in order to teach in schools and things like this. So we have a wide range in our community, just like the Catholic community or the Jewish community and any other facet of the community in Michigan.
Well, how has it affected your work there at CARE?
Well, we're working in our office right now. We have masks when we are in person, but we have our own offices. We distance. We don't really have clients come in. Most of the intakes are done over the phone. But we're still busy than ever. As a matter of fact, from 2020 in comparison to 2019, our case intake went up 30%. So during lockdown, and I thought that we would have less cases coming in, but I think it's because number one, anxieties. People are I guess quicker to snap, at workplaces and other situations, and then two, people who fly back into the country are still getting harassed by Customs Border Protection. There's still FBI harassment. So we actually saw during COVID-19 lockdown in 2020, starting with March, ending in December, we actually saw a large uptick in cases in comparison to 2019, which was uh, alarming. I mean, we also, we normally have seen a trend that on election years that cases
I was
rise up.
say
But
that.
this past season of presidential debates, Muslims really weren't a political football. So it's I don't really know the reasons why we've gotten more discrimination cases, but we have.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad people are coming to you. Yeah, and it was a relatively, I mean, despite all the craziness that was going on with the election season, just on its own, it was a relief to not have Muslims be the focus of so much of the animosity. It was, it was strange. It was strange in a good way, which is strange. um, well, how about your other work? Like, I don't know. I can imagine. Look, I know your banquet was canceled last year, so I'm
Yeah.
just wondering about how your fundraising. How has it affected your fundraising?
Yeah, our fundraising is much down in comparison to the previous year. We didn't have our annual fundraising banquet. Plus, the month of Ramadan is the time in which we go into the Islamic centers and fundraise during the Taraweeh prayers. That was cut off, so it's become a little more challenging. I've been trying to do more private events over Zoom, trying to call up certain donors and have them contact people for socially distanced or actually virtual presentations about our work and showing them that uh, the need has not gone down, even though um, there is more distancing in the society. So it's been a real challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I mean, I know that especially early on, but I'm sure that this is true today as well. I mean, we're just starting up this new series, so I'll learn more about this as the month goes on. But I know that in the spring, a lot of different Muslim congregations and a lot of different nonprofits that work in the Muslim community were very, very active in terms of food distribution and like PPE distribution, and they were just people were really just being very, very generous at that moment, but it was a different kind of generosity than the kind of generosity that supports care. And I know that a lot of nonprofit organizations have had a very bad year. So in the way that the COVID has affected, all of us, it's really hit like frontline people, low income people more than it's hit white collar people. So it seems like there should be still a lot of money out there to be given. It's just if all those institutional props like the Ramadan, like you're going to different masajid during Ramadan, if that's taken away from you, how do you replace that? That's the thing I don't know. Do you have any ideas for this year, for this Ramadan, what you might do?
What would be a little more aggressive as far as online advertising and trying to arrange during the month of Ramadan private online fundraisers of reaching out to our constituents and to try to encourage more private donations. But at the end of the day, we try to organize as we best we can and put in work and trust in God for the ultimate results. I will say on a personal level that last year was probably the best Ramadan that I had in the past 20 years, as far as being able to read the Quran, to be able to do dhikr or remembrance of God, of reading the seerah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and just to have all the family together and do it every night, and to not be driving across the state from here to Midland, Michigan and Kalamazoo, but to stay put. It was a good break for me, because normally during the month of Ramadan, I would normally get sick every year from wearing my body down so much, of like staying up all night, driving long distances, getting back in the house like around 1 in the morning, having to be back up like at 4 o'clock. And,
And just being
so
out with people and hugging and kissing and shaking
yeah,
hands with people, hundreds and thousands of people over the course of the month. That'll get you. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, every single person I spoke with last spring said this, that they were having the best Ramadan that they could remember, exactly for this reason. They were able to read the Quran, they were able to reflect, and they were able to spend it with their families. So many of the people I were talking about are like you. I mean, you work for a nonprofit. You're not a public official, but still, you're a public person and you're out and about. All the elected officials said, I mean, because I think that perhaps you can find a way in the future, inshallah, to maybe at least set yourself up some windows of time that you do stay with your family. You know what I mean? Like just say, okay, I know it's a big fundraising time for you, but if you could find a way to share that responsibility with other people so that you could learn, you could take forward the lesson you learned last year.
Yeah, for sure. Part of that would have to be diversifying the staff, because between our staff here as well as interns, I mean, legal interns, we have one younger gentleman who's an intern here, but he wouldn't be the person to go out to do fundraising. But our actual staff, like have on staff and working here, like four women. So that poses challenges, especially in more conservative communities like the Yemeni community, for instance. Like, no woman's going to go up in front of the congregation during Taraweeh time and say, "Oh, who can give $1,000 fi sabilillah?" Like, that's not going to happen. So it basically it those types of duties fall basically entirely on me when it comes to that.
Well, I mean, I feel like you need to call on your board in that case.
Yeah. uh, we'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, if I speak to any of your board members, I'll tell them they need to step up. uh, Well, so this has also been a big year. I mean, we just went through this election, and we now have a new presidential administration in place. And I mean, President Trump ran on an anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant platform, and he put in place a lot of executive orders intended to punish Muslims, and in particular. And I'm just wondering how this transition we're going through is also maybe going to affect your work there at CARE.
Alhamdulillah, we're thankful that Mr. Biden undid at least the Muslim travel ban on those particular countries. So he's returning things back basically as of right now to the status quo of when Obama was president. Now, when Obama left, things weren't good for Muslims,
No,
right? So it's not as if there's not going to be a lack of invasive questioning by the FBI. It doesn't mean that Muslims aren't going to be harassed in the airports. And when COVID-19 lifts, about harassment coming through the tunnel and the Ambassador Bridge. We're hopeful that at least with the rhetoric will be very different. But as far as a number of the issues from federal law enforcement that has plagued the Michigan community, in particular of Muslims, I don't see it. I don't see it fundamentally changing too much. It's been a trend in our office since the second term of President Obama that the largest percentage of our intakes actually come from claims of discrimination from governmental entities. It's not private citizens, right? So this is something that's been going on prior to Trump. I don't see it fundamentally changing anytime soon because, as we know, federal bureaucracy and how they work, they move more like the Titanic and less like a speedboat.
Oh, I understand that. But so other than law enforcement agencies, where are you seeing this? Like, well, prisons, I know that there's a big problem in prisons.
Still a big problem in prisons, yes. It's Customs Border Protection when people are coming back into the country, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Michigan Department of Corrections, in some cases, local police departments, like we've had instances with like the Sterling Heights Police Department, for instance. And then, of course, ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. So most of it is on the federal level, some on the state in regards to officers and corrections. We really don't have problems with the Michigan State Police. Alhamdulillah, that's one police force I've really never had a bad experience with, except that they were part of the multi-jurisdictional raid when Imam Uthman was fatally shot back in 2010. And then, of course, local police departments. We have issues of Islamophobia or just general racism, where the client comes to us and they're African American and happen to be Muslim, but they've been discriminated against, probably more so because of their blackness.
Well, you see that Dearborn is really taking some heat right now, the Dearborn police.
Well, the Dearborn police have always been horrible. And unfortunately, we have people in our community who are, I guess, like Blue Lives Matter Muslims, but they think that the Dearborn Police Department is great. And Chief Haddad, who's an Arab American, that, he's like he's Matsum or something. I don't know. But Dearborn police have had a very racist history. My former mentor, the late Ron Scott, we used to be out protesting in the Dearborn Police Department, and they've killed unarmed Black people too. And
oh yeah, they have recently. I mean, not yeah, I used to live in Dearborn. I used to live on Chase, like right off of Chase Road, and Chase like connects, Tireman to Ford Road, and I never saw white people getting pulled on Chase. There were 2 traffic stops on Chase, and they were only stopping Black people. I mean, I used to like go by waving, like 50 miles an hour, waving, just trying to see. That was back in the 90s. So that was a long time ago now. But still, it was obvious to me that, and I apparently something like 75% of traffic stops in the city today are still of African Americans.
Yeah, and African Americans, I would be surprised if African Americans would even make up even at most 3% of the population of Dearborn.
I think we're
So
like at
driving while black is a problem.
I think we're getting to 5%. And but what the city says is yes, but that's not counting all the people who work here and go to school here. And like, you've got a problem. You've got a problem if 75% of your traffic stops are from one community, and it's
Yep.
not the majority community. That's all there is to it. It's a problem.
Yeah. Well, one thing I can say too about our work, since you were on the subject, and Care National made this national policy shift after the murder of George Floyd, and we even have a special um, part of it on our website now. But we've committed at Care Michigan that we're going to spend about a fifth of our advocacy time dealing with the issue of anti-Black racism. And it's not just because we have, a significant amount of Muslims who are Black, but it's more in regards to looking at the issue of Islamophobia as being like a branch on a tree of like American racism, right? And at the root of it, or at the trunk of it, is anti-Black racism. So, in order to deal with some of the systemic issues and the racial profiling, we believe, just from a methodology standpoint, that if we work on eroding anti-Black racism, that, I mean, not just Muslims who are Black will benefit, but Arabs and South Asians will definitely, it helps solve their problem if we can deal with this anti-Black racism issue that's rooted in the false ideology of white supremacy.
I mean, that sounds like an excellent strategy. And I mean, I feel like it was something you were already pursuing before, but maybe just not explicitly in this way.
Right.
And you're right to go to the root of the tree. And also, I think we know from experience that there's anti-Black racism within the Muslim community as well. So, I mean, that's always been a part of your work, trying to tackle that too. So, these are all huge challenges you're taking on. Well, I can see that we've exhausted our brief time together, but I want to thank you for talking to me. And again, I really value the work you do, the work CARE does, but also the work you do in the community. I think you've played an incredibly important role in that organization, and that CARE Michigan is doing an outstanding job. So I will encourage the people I know to support CARE, and let's keep in touch. Thank you, Dawud.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are watching, remember us during Ramadan with your prayers and your donations.
Exactly. And if anyone out there has a story that you want to share, please get in touch with us. We're relaunching this, and so we're really open to hearing whatever stories from the Muslim community that you want to share with us. So just reach out. All right. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum. Take care.